Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos, doggone it. I am John Boy, and it is John Boy time. The COVID kid. COVID barely 18. Your host, John Fahey. Joining me as ever, prettiest boy under the sun. 3 children on top of each other in a trench coat, disguising themselves as an adult man. Each child ripped, shredded, with a huge cock. The Sultan of Smut, Aaron Joseph Pita.
Don't forget that I am...
The Marquise?
I am the Marquise, and I'm also in my medical residency to one day become a Dr. Infinity myself.
Of course, yeah.
Now, for you freeloaders who don't get the Patreon, you'll have to go back to the previous...
Sycophants.
The Dr. Infinity is, he's somebody who does his own thing.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend listening to that. Now, speaking of doctors and huge cocks...
Big time.
And doing his own thing.
Yeah.
On the left of my screen.
Speaking of reaching for your dreams.
Dr. Matthew Brousseau, LSD. Hey,
How
buddy.
are you, Matt?
Look at the beautiful Los Angeles skyline behind you. Oh.
Forget about it, Jake. It's Chineseville.
You're in the bosom of the Pacific Ocean.
If you do not subscribe to the Patreon, I would say last episode recorded remotely in quarantine, one of the best. And then actually before that, the last one, oh no, that was a regular episode. But both of you guys really brought great shit to both of those last 2 episodes.
We got really courtesy of. I know that I got housed last night.
Yes.
Off of my good friend here, Nick Shapiro's
Vespers.
cocktails. Yeah, the Vespers from the motion picture and book Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Found out that each one of those little martinis has 4 ounces of liquor in it.
Oh, cool. Because you drank at least 2.
I drank at least 2 and a beer during the show.
Then you had to have a snack.
I had to have a few snacks. I had some crackers, a whole bar of chocolate.
Oh boy.
And I really hope for those listening, you didn't hear me smacking my fucking gums.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that's annoying. I know it is. I apologize. I'm a monster.
I don't think we've said it in a moment, but we'll have some of this on YouTube. Matt, is that right?
Yeah, this one. Yeah, well, we'll be back on YouTube with this one.
Okay.
If everything goes right.
Yeah. So,
You know what this whole thing reminds me of? And I've been watching the news, and now Chris Cuomo's got the COVID, and everybody's shooting their shit from home. In 1989 Batman, when Bruce Wayne when the authorities and Bruce figure out that the Joker poison is inside all of the cosmetics in Gotham City, when they figure that out, and then he's watching the news in Gotham City, you see all the newscasters have big old zits and bags under their eyes, and their hair's not done. It's a very, very nice detail in 1989 Batman.
That's very, very nice.
You're seeing all these people at home with they don't have the professional makeup people.
No,
they're in these weird
shit.
rooms. Yeah.
Even Trump today, he had his hair was gray and his face was pale.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Sick. Put the makeup back on.
Who's this old man? Where's the freak show?
Yeah. Chris Cuomo still looks good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not great.
I wouldn't fuck him, but someone must.
Hey.
Do you guys know who Leslie Jordan is?
Context? Do you have any context?
He's in he's one of those guys that plays a million people in American Horror Story.
Oh,
okay.
no.
He was in Will and Grace, and he's like a southern gay dude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But he's talking.
You said American Horror Story. We got it.
He's got a new update.
Well, shit.
Nice.
What are y'all doing? Screwing?
Come in.
There was an article in the New York Times
Perfect, right there.
about all the rules. for sex during the pandemic. Said the best is masturbation. My God, I'm 65. I can't even do that. It takes too long. Too involved. I bet there'll be a lot of babies born. 9 months be Christmas babies. I feel like y'all all out there screwing, and here I am just sitting. Well, screw on.
That's very funny.
You like that?
I do a lot.
Aaron,
Looks like Dr. Infinity was on to something.
this guy, when he was talking about, he was raised Southern Baptist in Tennessee, and he's like, I was baptized 14 times because they would always say sinners come forward, and I'd be like, ooh, I went in the woods with that boy. And then so he comes out here and he gets like really into like drugs and alcohol, and he shares a jail cell with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, nice.
And then years later, they were both are actors on Ally McBeal.
Right, that was...
And Robert Downey Jr. can't place where he knows him from. And he's
I met you tonight, right?
He's like, yeah, he's like, that's pretty much when I stopped using everything. Was
It's like Black Klansman.
crazy.
It's like, how the hell do I know you? Well, you're the cop that put me in jail. Yeah, that's very funny. Robert Downey Jr. and Leslie Jordan.
Well, Aaron, because of your very fun, longer part of the show on the Patreon. By the way, follow us on YouTube, PP Podcast on Twitter, Profiles in Eccentricity on Instagram, and get an extra show a week by subscribing. I think because you were doing that stuff, I went into this one I've been meaning to do for a long time, and it was inspired by also the Rialto Report, and it overlaps in the same world as the Phil Prince stuff, you know.
Wonderful.
Very, very closely. But it's just super interesting. There was this porn director who did a few like really, zany, over the top movies.
Zany.
Yeah, they actually are kind of zany.
Like when they do the ones where they play Simpsons characters and they're all yellow.
Well,
Or
they were
Weekend
kind
at Spermies.
they were kind of like, they were doing like a buddy porn movie, it was based on Bing Crosby and Bob Hope doing movies together, and so it's kind of like there's like this smooth ladies man character, and then there's like the loser guy. And it's just that's like what was kind of like the setting of these movies that this guy got famous for.
Was one called White Christmas?
No. Okay. But they were like in Europe and stuff like that, and but the guy's name was Navred Reef.
Navred
Reef.
Navrid.
Is that an anagram or backwards or something?
Yeah,
that's what somebody came up with, is that it's Feer. It's a Dutch name. And
Feer.
That was Robin Boogie, who does Cinema Sewer, said a Dutch correspondent got in touch with him and was like, what if it's, and then April Hall, who did all the great investigative journalism on the Rialto Report about Phil Prince, basically starts chasing that down. And his name was Tom Vanderveer, and he was born in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and just kind of like a middle class regular family. And he was there for the Rotterdam Blitz, right?
Oh.
And the bombs hit the city from the Luftwaffe May 14th, 1940, during the invasion, and the whole historic city center is gone, right? It kills 900 people, and 85,000 people are left homeless. 85,000. And the Nazi occupation then happens, and like the Gestapo are in his building, and like other people in school are like giving him shit because he looks kind of Jewish, and like the air quality from the bombing gives him lifelong emphysema. Which is crazy thinking about all this shit going on right now.
Well, we're all really clean.
Right now,
the
the air's
air.
never been cleaner.
Well, just having a respiratory thing,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so, you're just kind of there with like this threat of violence. And, obviously they make it through. But in 52, the whole family goes to Australia. And,
That was pretty common.
yeah, what's that about?
It was the new land of opportunity.
It was just like, get the fuck out of here.
I like a lot of people that I've met from Australia were like, the Italians and Dutch, like, oh yeah, my family moved here after World War II. When, I mean, it's 52 significantly after, but yeah, big, a lot of space.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
His family kind of like assimilates pretty well, and they kind of like all get new careers, and he like his brother marries a girl and stuff like that, and he gets into working as a photographer in Brisbane, and he gets really into photographing showgirls and ballet dancers and stuff, and he's kind of like a hustler, and he marries this girl named Margaret, and he went over to chat with them because he knew her friend that he had also dated. And then, like, the next day he showed up at her house and just, like, started courting her hardcore. And then they get married super fast in 55. And she knows that he's, like, quick and smart. But she said later that he had, like, the instincts of a pimp, He
had pimp instinct.
Yeah, to kind of, like, get her to go out and get, like, additional money coming into the house or whatever.
You're the hustler now.
Yeah. And
Wait, so he pimped out his wife?
No, it wasn't necessarily... that
It's more of your hot wife share scenario.
Let's just like go. I'm gonna go out and bring in more money, and then it kind of ends up leading that way. But he's also just like a hothead, and he's like not down with the in-laws, and he would freak out. And one time they were over visiting, and like he's like, you guys have to leave, and there's nowhere for them to go. So he like gets them a tent and makes them camp outside.
Wait, whoa.
Well, it's like Parasite.
Yeah.
Wait,
And,
so in his backyard, his in-laws were in a tent.
Yeah, he made them go in the backyard.
I kind of like that.
I really knew you would.
You had
Why the
90-degree
hell are they
backyard.
there? Go home.
I don't know. So then he would do the kind of thing where he'd be like taking your picture on the beach and then trying to sell you the picture and like shit like that. And,
He's a real piece of shit.
Yeah.
The pimping and the kicking out of the in-laws is one thing. You take my picture and try to sell it to me on the beach, you're a real fucking piece of work.
gets really into the whole like the lab stuff of photography. He's all into that, and he starts going to nightclubs, and he was really into that whole scene. And he's doing a thing where he's like, "Oh, I'll take pictures of your customers, blah blah blah," and then they see that like he has no film in the camera, so they throw him out. And so basically, she's like, "Well, this studio isn't doing that much." So he's got like a home studio, and she basically finds out he's been taking pictures of like topless women and selling them, which is like super underground then, and it would be like in exchange for like even like a meal in a restaurant. He would just trade these things for whatever. It could be goods, services, money, but like she was just like, yeah, how is this guy getting shit?
Can I ask you, and this is not any sort of plot spoiler or anything, but this kind of reminds me of that story Matt told. This is probably a year ago now. Maybe it was
the box one.
Yeah, where she was, it's like 40 Aussie dollars for some light BDSM.
Oh,
And
right.
Remember that where they were doing like the nasty shit in the barn in Australia? And eventually somebody died.
The New Zealand cricket ump.
That's right, the cricket umpire. We simply cannot keep losing umpires like this.
That's so fucking crazy, man.
This is around that time, maybe a little bit later than this particular period, but
Right.
because that was probably like in the 70s, right?
Right.
Your story, Matt, the umpire disappearance.
Yeah, that was late 70s, early 80s, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, this
But-
is kind of like late 50s.
50s. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Rich history of perversion apparently in those areas of the world.
it does remind me of Boggs drawing money. I mean, he's just
Yes.
bartering. He's bartering with
Yeah.
topless pictures. I mean, fuck,
Well,
that's
she
a great
finds
idea.
out and tells him to
I'll draw your tits and you give me a hot sandwich.
yeah. She finds out and she tells him to stop, and then the cops arrest him because he continues doing it, and he begs the cops not to tell his wife.
Then he gives him a picture.
Late 57, they have their first son, Robert. A couple of months later,
Their first son, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you said first armed robbery.
No.
Got it.
And a couple of months later, she's pregnant again with her second son, William. And before he's born, Tom's parents and like brother, everybody leaves the country, right? And then he just leaves while she's pregnant.
Wait, what? They all just disappear.
What?
What?
Why, you son of a bitch?
Yeah. So
Where did he go?
she finds out that he went to Canada by boat.
By boat?
By boat, yeah.
It's a long trip, pal.
You bet. Well, he had all those pictures to keep him company.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a whole roll of film.
Yeah.
Or an empty camera.
And she found that out. Like she was like, went to like government office and was like trying to get help and be like what can I do like, and she when the clerk is gone, they won't tell her anything, and then she just like steals the file and starts going through it, and that's how she found out that he went to Canada.
Pretty resourceful couple.
So the second kid is born. Don't forget the other one's a newborn, and he's just gone to another continent, and he never came back. He never made contact again, and she divorced him. There's no pictures of him there because her mom cut him out of every photograph that they had.
And all the other cameras didn't have any film.
Right. Well, yeah.
And all the other pictures had tits in them.
That shit's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
man.
it not this in this particular instance. This is crazy to me. I mean, just the idea of doing that and how rampant it is just.
Wait, just disappearing, right?
Yeah, when you knock some poor lady up,
Dude, for God's
twice,
sake, it's
like
insane.
I mean, just
yeah,
at this,
just
Yeah.
you made your bed, pal. Lie in it.
Yeah.
Your life is over. It's now the case. It's now this two kids' lives.
yeah. I mean,
And
I don't,
and
I don't-
hers.
I don't know how you move on and just go like, well man, that was crazy.
New country, new me.
what was I thinking?
But you're probably
New
a
country, who
sociopath.
this?
Exactly.
I mean, it's probably easier if you're a sociopath.
Yeah. Or a photographer.
Or,
Yeah.
It's a different.
50th one.
But he's he ends up in New Jersey and he's got like a little lab again, a little photo thing, and people say like they remember him being fidgety, restless, like anxious, and he's always like on a scheme to make money, and yeah, he's all chopped up. And he's not really into the creative side of photography. He's way more into the technical and like money making aspects. He meets
Just lying about it.
he meets a girl named Judy in 1961, and she's like 8 years younger, and she was they met at a singles group at this Marble Collegiate Church in Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, near the Empire State Building. And so since he has this love of showgirls, he gets into her, like, and he's like, I'll take your headshots, whatever. And she starts dating him, and then they get married like a year later. And it's 63, May 63, at the church where they met. And Dr. Norman Vincent Peale is the one that marries them. He's the author of The Power of Positive Thinking.
Oh God.
Wait, how does he get involved? This guy.
He was I guess a minister at the church.
He's an ordained minister.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's positive thinking, I guess.
He hadn't read the book yet.
So yeah, they get this little place in Newark, and it's it's partitioned, so it's like kind of depressing. You know what I mean? It's like a building, and it's you're just like in this kind of sad loft, and part of it is like his studio, and like his what do you call it, the
dark room.
Yes, exactly, dark room. And she there's one picture of him from this time where he's recording her singing, to push her like stage career. And it's the only photo of this guy that exists.
Period.
He was like a very secretive, weird person, and he was always running from something, and so like he's kind of like he's a hothead again, and sometimes he'd open up and he'd talk about the bombing in Rotterdam, and being picked on because he looks Jewish, and how teachers would like make him stand in the corner, and they were kind of bullying him too. He doesn't say anything about abandoning two children, of course.
Well, yes, that was not
Then he's
part of the motivation.
he's telling her that he won't have kids, so she's fucking distraught over that. He won't go to church anymore. He makes a twin bed in their loft, and he would only let her in the bed to have sex, and then he would make her sleep on the couch.
What?
So insane. It's so bad. It's so wrong.
And he was like, listen, honey, if Ricky and Lucy are doing it, sleeping in separate beds, it's good enough for us.
Couch is good for you.
Couch
is me for me. Couch is
Two beds. What are we, rich?
think of it as a sofa.
Hey, it's a love seat.
And then
You'll love to sit on it.
Twin beds are for twins.
Yeah. And then he's also like, keeping tracks on her, like he's jealous and stuff. He's a weirdo. And the studio's not making that much money, and he starts freaking out, and then he starts doing his pimp thing where he's like, hey, go get some work and, make some food for restaurants and stuff like that. And
So when you say pimp thing, you mean putting her to work, not putting her to work.
No.
Right.
But
right.
it's that kind of thing where it's like bring in, get money, bring it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually you don't be like, hey, after you're done walking the street, can you make some macaroni?
Yeah, and then he would do anything to get a job. Like he would be like, oh, I am Jewish, to get a job at a temple. You know what I mean? He would be a little bit of a chameleon, and kind of like shift around. And he was way into the processing side of photography, and he patented in late '63, right when JFK is killed, November '63, a way of getting rolls of film clean of chemicals. So he's really got an actual thing for this. Like it's not it's not like a scam.
Yeah.
So 65, he tells Judy that he's been taking nude pictures of women, and she gets the impression that it's been going on for a long time, longer than she knows. And so then he's kind of like, and this is where the instinct comes in again. He's like, well, now I need to take nude pictures of you, because there's a guy from a telephone company, an executive, that was like, I'll give you the advertising contract if you give me nude pictures. And
specific nude pictures or just any?
Of his wife.
Apparently of her, yeah.
No.
And then he gets the job. She goes along with it, and he gets the work from the telephone company. And a little bit after this, Vice cops hear that he's selling these, and they come to the loft, and he got tipped off somehow. So everything got taken out to the Hoboken ferry and dumped in the water.
That's Hoboken for you.
And then she gets a job doing a touring show of Hello Dolly in '66. She comes home, she finds condoms like in the bedroom, and she's like, all right, well, he's fucking other women, right? And then
no, he's just taking pictures of them.
She's
used?
She's on the road, and she's like, all right, I don't want to come home, and she's in Vegas. She learns she can get a divorce in Nevada, so she does it. And he's upset, but he's like, all right, fine, as long as I can keep all of our shit. And she sporadically, yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
He's a wheeler and dealer.
Yeah, she sporadically keeps in touch with him, and she remarries, and she's pregnant with a kid in '63 or '73, and he sent her like $600 and a gift for the kid, and she never heard from him again.
But it's not his kid.
No, it's her from her second marriage.
And he's like, hey, congratulations on getting knocked up. I'm myself am not a parent.
Right. Yeah. And so then he gets into like making films. He's like the 8mm, porno, like a porno.
Like a red light district.
Yeah. And he meets this guy named Salsa Dano through the adult bookstore thing.
Wait, Salsa Dano?
Sodano, yeah.
Saul Sodano.
Sal Sodano.
Oh, right. Not Salsa Dano.
No, not Salsa Dano.
Right. Got it.
Sal Sodano.
That's a Is that a Chips reference?
So he's trying to make movies, and he's one of the first in like this brand new industry that's putting out the loops, right? Mm-hmm. And there's just an endless need for these for the 42nd Street area.
For the jerk off booths.
Yeah.
Wait, for the booths.
Yeah, the loops. The loops are.
Okay,
I mean, I think Johnny John Holmes got big on the loops first, right? And
A lot of them did. A lot of the early ones did.
Yeah, they were just 3-minute loops that would go on in the jerk off booths at the porno theater.
It's like the old Nickelodeons adapted to porn.
That's right. There were Nickelodeons, but filled with cum.
So Sal Sedano is like part of this like very small group of people making loops. And Tom, it's like 6 people, and Tom is like very desperate to get in that group. And the lucrative nature of it too was sung to him, of course. And so he rents an apartment in 48th Street, just down the block from all that area, and he starts shooting loops right away in his apartment. And he puts out ads, just being like, "Hey, you want to make some money? Come to my apartment. We'll shoot this stuff." And Sal said later about him, he was a strange guy, a loner, and he could be secretive. He was nervous too, as if he feared someone was always after him. He was interested in shooting loops like the rest of us. But he didn't just want to shoot; he wanted to get to know the people who we'd sell them to. He knew that's where the real money was, and he wanted the money. And so he's one of the first to shoot an 8mm with Linda Lovelace from Deep Throat.
Mm-hmm. Was it with a dog?
No, it was not the dog. I know you'd ask.
No morality.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
I like the party.
Yeah, and she has like a little blurb about him in her book. Those first 8mm films were shot in a loft near 48th Street and Broadway by a man named Tom. The bathroom sink was filthy. The rooms were filled with odd pieces
God
of.
Damn it!
What, the bathroom sink? That's what sets you up?
That's what sets me up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can blow a dog. I don't give a shit. But if you got a nasty fucking house when you have people over, kill yourself.
Yeah. Odd pieces of furniture covered by the sheets. The floors had never been mopped, and your feet turned black just walking on them.
Oh yeah, that's frat house shit.
The people who made filthy movies always seem to live in filth. Tom introduces to our co-stars a young, nice-looking man named Rob. I wound up making half a dozen of the 8mm movies with Rob, including some with his wife Kathy.
Nice.
And so there's some like stills from this in the Rialto Report thing that look just like horribly grainy. Everybody looks so gross on those.
Yeah.
It's he's selling it to bookstore owners and other distributors like Louis Marty, who was known as the Spick. He was called the Spick, Louis the Spick Marty.
How do you get that?
Say it more.
So
that was a regional nickname.
Did he like to keep things really clean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was it. Well, not the sink,
not
probably.
the floor. Yeah, of course, filthy.
And he was a very famous for being arrested for dealing pornography, including bestiality loops. In one court case in 1965, Aaron, he was asked by a completely mind-blown district attorney, prosecutor, how he managed to get a dog to perform in a sex act.
Oh, what a good court case.
And he said,
dumb question.
He said, I have no idea. I work in sales, not in production.
But isn't that sales? Getting the dog to do it?
No, that's production. He's not a director.
Yeah.
You ever work with acted dogs?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. The hard part isn't getting the dog to fuck a human.
No.
The hard part is getting the lady to fuck a dog.
Yeah. Or getting the dog to love you after you cut its balls off.
I mean, what a question.
This other
What a
dog
question.
is completely delighted.
The question that this DA asks is almost like he wants to do it himself. Now, how'd you get the dog to fuck?
yeah.
How'd you get the dog to fuck her? That is not the hard part. The real question is, how did you find this poor woman?
Of course.
How did you get her to fuck?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Well, they think dogs are nice. Dogs are always the innocent ones because they can't talk.
That's right. No, but
Well,
they put
maybe not
peanut
to
butter in their mouth.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So there was a lot of mafia
Of course.
protection for people making these loops, of course, right? And they're the ones trafficking them, and so you would have basically kind of your own mafia like rabbi. You know what I mean? Did
Wait,
you not
I'm
hear
sorry.
me?
I'm sorry. Mafia,
rabbi?
Rabbi?
Yeah, like you got kind of like your guy. That's your protector. Because you cut him in on the action.
They called
What
it
do the
a
Jews
rabbi.
have to do with this?
He's just like, I just mean like he's like your guy in your corner. You know what I mean?
So your connection.
Your mafia fixer.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna let you do your thing because he's
Hey,
making.
I'm here. I'm a rabbi. I'm also in the mafia. It's
Right.
It's
keep
ironic.
the Mulignans away. It's part of our thing.
Yeah. His is a really nasty piece of work named Roy DeMeo. I don't know if you've ever heard of DeMeo.
I have heard that name.
Alphonse DeMeo? Wasn't he part of the New York political scene?
No, I've heard Roy DeMeo before for sure.
Oh yeah. Roy DeMeo is he was in the Gambino family, and in
Is he the Iceman?
No, the Iceman was his guy. And yeah, and that's Kuklinski, the Iceman.
That guy's a real piece of shit.
And Tom knew Kuklinski too.
No shit.
And he would make movies and kind of give them to those guys to then sell.
So the murderers were selling smut on the side to make up.
DeMeo's thing was mainly loan sharking and car theft, and the DeMeo gang, the DeMeo crew was really like talked about with like sheer horror years later by the police that dealt with them. And they had a style of execution that was known as the Gemini method. And the Gemini method was because most of them happened in the Gemini Lounge in Brooklyn, and it was where these guys hung out. And so you would get a guy to come by, you know, mostly voluntarily, and all the guys that were in the crew that became witness protection later would all say the same thing, that this is how it was, and that apparently like over 100 people died this way. Easy. And so the victim would come in through a side door in the lounge into an apartment in the back part of the building, and then usually Roy DeMeo himself would come out with a silencer or pistol and shoot the guy in the head with the pistol in one hand and a towel in the other to stop the bleeding immediately. And then somebody else would come out and stab the guy in the heart so that the blood would
Which
stop
is also
pumping.
very Gemini.
Yes, I was wondering what
duality.
Yeah.
The duality of
That's pretty commendable.
the knife and the gun.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
And then they would chop the guy up, and and then they would take him to the
They
dump.
waste the blow on him?
Yeah. to accelerate his journey into the afterlife.
Yeah. We killed him, then we chopped him up. We like the guy. It's just business.
Make it look like an overdose.
Yeah. Hot shots. He got so chopped up, he shot himself in the head and stopped his own bleeding. It was crazy.
And then he chopped his own arms and legs off.
I don't know how he did it.
then he took himself,
CIA took everything they knew from us
he took himself down to the dump.
and put his own feet in cement and waited 3 hours for it to dry.
Yeah. And the Fountain Avenue dump would have so many tons of garbage that nobody would find these bodies at all, and they were all just dropped there. And so DeMeo is into distributing porn, and he's always needing a supply from guys like Tom and Richard Kuklinski too, the Iceman. So that's so great. The Iceman is like murdering people in cold blood, but also like I got these. Yeah,
tapes.
well, like this. I mean, like I said, he was more of a contract guy, but so was DeMeo too. Like the
right, because Kuklinski wasn't a made man, right? He was Polish or whatever.
And neither was DeMeo.
But he was Italian at least.
He was, but
not like Sicilian.
When they kind of had like the shake up in the Gambino crime family, his like kind of superior became he got elevated. He became like a capo, but and he was hoping to make DeMeo a made guy, and DeMeo never. Castellano was, I think, leading the organization then, and he didn't like those like really street hood guys because he was into like white collar crime.
Well, he's running a business.
Okay. The ethics of mob titles.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
I think
Also,
there is something to be said for that.
Sure, no, I mean, I
except
understand.
that you're taking the guy's money. You're good enough to take his money. You know.
How is that different than real business?
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm just saying it's a little bit. It's a little bit willful ignorance. You know what I mean?
Sure. I'm gonna grab a pee. Hold on.
Okay. Get it. You won't. And we're back. Aaron, you got your pee. You're very good.
I have I have this very non-racist Trader Jose's.
Of course. So he's making stuff for Roy DeMeo and Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, and he's doing good. You know, the relationship is working out for him, and he gets another place in Times Square, and that's his main film studio now, and he starts shooting, editing there, and a lot of times he'd do it alone. Sometimes he'd have a helper, and this guy that he knows from a printing business that would make porno magazines, is a guy named Bill Lux, and Bill Lux shared an office space with the Iceman, and
an office.
I can't. Yeah, I mean that's just
Their
insane
office
to
is-
say out loud.
Yes.
That's
No, hi, I'm here to pay. I'm here to find somebody that I can.
well. The thing is that
kill my wife.
that
with.
was
Oh
that,
no, that's 101B.
Yeah.
101A is porno. The murderer hires.
that was also like a bit of a Richard Kuklinski was just known as Big Richie back then. He wasn't called the Iceman. And I
Was
think
the Iceman like the code name the cops gave him or whatever?
I think probably later after people found out a lot, but also there's a lot of stuff that the Iceman is not telling the truth about. Other people like have admitted to the same murders, and there's things that have been shown that they don't add up, and he's kind of doing that thing where he's getting off on the notoriety.
Or
Clearly.
adding to his mythos.
Absolutely.
Do you know where the nickname comes from?
the
He
Iceman?
was so cold.
Yeah, he's so cold. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not
He was
like
the
he
most
put the
powerful
bodies in
mutant.
freezers. Yeah.
No, he was very cold. And didn't Michael Shannon play him in a movie?
I believe he did. Yes.
Yeah.
I believe he did. But at first the HBO documentary about it was like the most famous thing.
Yeah, where they have that footage of him like walking into a store, pulling the gun out of a bag, popping the guy in the face. Putting it back,
I never
just
saw it. My brother
There's
would
some-
watch it over and over again, and
there's
it's
some
just
pretty-
too dark for me.
There's
Yeah.
some pretty, very dark footage of him
Yeah.
just committing murder, like truly in cold blood. It's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
insane.
this guy doing the printing business that shares an office space with the Iceman. This is what he has to say about Tom, who's never killed anybody, by the way. So he's
Just
sharing that-
deserted
I guess if you're cool and a murderer, people aren't freaked out. But if you're not a murderer and nervous, he remembers Tom as a strange, nervous guy, schizo even, especially when he hadn't taken his meds. Even though he'd been in the U.S. for a while, he still spoke with a Dutch accent. Not that strange, you know. And so Tom has to, make more of these loops because there's just demand. And there's this guy named Smitty, who is from the West Indies, and he works with Bill Lux, right, doing the porn printing stuff. And so Smitty would shoot and edit his own films in his apartment. And so, Tom could be a little stingy with the money and a little greedy, and it would kind of like get him in some shit. And so one day they do what they call a one-day wonder, where you make a movie in a day, right? Him and Tom. And
And some girls, right?
yeah, and a couple of
Hey,
girls, dogs.
Some days.
And so
Who's to say?
then Tom doesn't pay him, right? And so Smitty's like, what the fuck, and he starts, kind of, turning a little bit, buck and like tearing shit up. And Tom is like, oh, he tells DeMeo, like, this fucking guy Smitty's being a pain in my balls. And DeMeo is like, I don't want any fucking trouble with this shit. And he goes and he tells Smitty, he comes to Smitty's door and he's like, Vander Feer works for me, Tom works for me, and don't go near Tom. And so Bill Lux is aware of all this. And so he's telling Smitty, like, if it's coming from DeMeo, this is a threat, right? And he's just a fucking hothead, and he goes to the place in Times Square where Tom is, and he wrecks his studio, and he takes a camera because he's like, all right, here's my money now, fool. And then DeMeo is like, listen, we're going to have a sit down with Tom, and it's going to be at the Gemini Lounge.
Oh, good.
And so he tells,
also the place where they had normal business. Not always a murder.
Sure.
yeah,
But it
yeah.
could be.
But also,
Imagine that was your local, and you had no idea.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just,
Hey, this place is pretty cool.
yeah. I get a really good feeling when I come in here. This is like my Cheers.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. That guy, I haven't seen that guy in a while, but probably
Yeah.
Who
fine.
cares?
Yeah,
There's new people coming in.
yeah. I know some names. Some people know mine. It's not
Must be-
really the same as Cheers, I guess.
Yeah.
A lot
Is
of
there a
people missing,
party?
actually.
Is there a party in the back? What's going on? Seems like a good time.
So
The music's really loud.
he
I mean,
waits.
somebody could fire a gun here.
Bill Lux is waiting up all night for Smitty to call, and of course he never calls. And the next time he sees DeMeo, he goes, how'd the sit down go? And DeMeo's like, sit down? What sit down? And then he's like, I just didn't ask any more questions.
Oh boy,
And
Shoot down.
somebody
Stab,
got murked.
stab down.
yeah, so the 8mm loops start going away, and one of the there's a couple of Greek dudes that own the Capri Theater, and they are like looking for a product to show there, and they would want some of these one-day wonders, and they would pay Tom a flat fee to make them, and so it's just really shitty quality stuff, and they kept buying more and more even though it was garbage. And so he's also weirdly getting successful in mainstream stuff. He's making Texaco commercials, and
Wait,
the
gas
oil
station.
company. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
wait, no. I know who the fucking Texaco is.
All right, well, settle down. Do you have
Vanderveer
too many
is
Negronis
making.
or something?
Vanderveer is making Texaco commercials
Yeah, like he gets that like phone advertising contract. Don't forget, and then he's
because
got
he pimped out his wife, right?
right, and then he's
So what they go send us your reel, and he sends a bunch of loops over, and they're like, hey, this guy knows fucking lighting.
Look at these angles,
but he's
yeah.
got that chameleonic nature. Don't forget. So to some
he can
people,
He can fake it. Yeah.
he's one guy, and to another person, he's somebody else, and
That's
Some people he's dad.
awesome.
it's
Some
pretty
others,
cool,
yeah.
And
That's
so,
wild.
yeah, and so
These are TV commercials. These are national TV commercials.
yeah, and kind of like there were these things called like industrial films, I guess. Like if you were making a movie, for like
Sometimes shown
employee or-
only in house, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And so then he gets an assistant to work as an apprentice, Connie, and she's also the one that kind of is then like the friendly female face for like actresses coming through. And
Strategy.
yeah, the Greek guys, they're like, we want to make like a big movie, like a mainstream movie. And so he puts out an ad for a screenwriter in the Village Voice, and this guy named John Delaney comes, and John Delaney is still making movies now, like out here and stuff. He's an actor. He was trying to be more of a filmmaker screenwriter then, and he gets along with Tom really well. And he's saying Tom always works really long hours, and you can see from like the duality of him, doing all this shit. Like he's at the very least like committed to working really hard and also being very technically proficient. He was really into gadgets, techie kind of guy, and so one of the Greek guys is like, it's about an artist in Spain who falls in love with a girl. And he's like, okay, and then he writes a whole screenplay, and then they just credit the Greek guy with writing it.
Oh.
And they say additional dialogue by this guy. And
Oh, baby.
so he said he was trying to make like a sci-fi movie in his own time, and he finished the screenplay, and he asked Tom if he could build faux spaceships, fake spaceships for the movie. And he said Tom was really nice and let me, use it. And
Don't build real ones.
right.
We
And
don't have the budget.
yeah, there's other people that talk about like his Texaco time, and they say like he there was one thing where there was like a little kid who's like he's got a balloon and he's talking to a Texaco employee, and the balloon pops, and I guess after take the kid realizes that what Tom's doing is having somebody else shoot it with a BB gun. And then the kid started freaking out and crying, and that was the end of that, basically.
Listen, kid, you know how many girls take a shot in the face? Take it easy.
And then he's also teaching cinematography and stuff. like, you know, behind the scenes movie stuff at one of the studios too. So he's doing all of this different shit. And he goes more and more into, you know, porn, even though he's getting increasingly, you know, like, good at
mainstream shit.
Mainstream stuff. And I think it's just that he kind of likes the sketch, you know?
Yeah.
He just kind of likes the sketch. And so he's like, you know, doing the, he gets into this, there's like a little company called ASOM Distributing. And that was what had Gerard Damiano. You were talking about Damiano.
Yeah, Damiano last night. A previous Patreon episode, we're talking about Damiano, yeah.
Right, and he
did some big stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and he also, he did, I think it was something that was kind of like a 2001, which is called Odyssey, the Ultimate Trip.
Yeah, which is a blatant ripoff. But
Yeah.
he was definitely golden age of porn.
And he did Let My Puppets Come. You know about that one?
Which one?
Let My Puppets Come.
Was that a Moses and the Ten Commandments puppet porn?
It had straight up like Muppet style.
Let my puppets come. That's really bad. The Ten Commandments, was that what it was called?
No, but yeah, it had fucking puppets in it, and it was crazy.
Okay, we got to see that.
I know. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Let my puppets come.
So he's making these one-day wonders and stuff, and he comes across people like Jamie Gillis and those type of guys.
Classic. He was in Deep Throat, right?
Jamie Gillis was usually like a sadistic psycho in a lot of movies.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like a sadistic psychic.
No, he's quite a handsome guy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so
I remember.
there's this actor called Roger Kane. And Kane was cutting loops for him when he was unable to act because he broke his leg skydiving. And so he'd go to Tom's studio and edit short films, and he would see Tom just, you know, making commercials and doing his corporate stuff. And then they became like really good friends, and he thought Tom was just, you know, tasteful, really into opera, really into scotch. Thought he was brilliant, intelligent.
The shifty, nervous schizo guy?
Yeah.
He does have some talents. He patented.
But he remembered finding that he had now attained a lifestyle that, you know, necessitated at least $1,000 a week income, you know, back then.
Now, when you say lifestyle, do you mean drugs?
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's more just
fine dining and liquor and rent.
Well, definitely nightlife, but yeah, drugs aren't really brought up too much. And going deeper into the porn stuff was
When you say income,
money not coming in. You're sick.
right. Yeah, I'm not talking about puppet income.
okay.
I'm not talking about coming in puppets.
Okay, all right.
And so then, so one of those ways, you know, to get that money was doing the porn stuff. And so he reverses his name to Navred Reef. And then,
So he finally
and presumably, now at this point, is all the porn stuff still off book, black market, non-taxed?
Yeah, presumably, yeah.
Right, it's still illegal, right?
Well,
So
yeah,
that's
it's basically going straight to the mafia or like, you know.
Straight to the Iceman.
Is this early 80s? When is this?
This would be like 76 now.
Oh, shit, okay.
And so he was friends with this guy named Zebedee Colt. And yeah.
Zebedee?
Zebedee. Zebedee Colt.
That's the sound he made? How to get that?
And Zebedee Colt was a guy from California. He was a child actor that was like in like old like Laurel and Hardy movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't raped.
And he was into he was one of the guys that started Queer Cabaret under the name Zebedee Colt. He was born Edward Marsh, and it was like he made this album called "I'll Sing for You" that was like with the London Philharmonic Orchestra in the late '60s, and then he started making porns in the '70s. But he's still active on Broadway, so this guy's also leading a double life, right? And I mean, he's doing like mainstream Broadway stuff, and then doing like and directing disgusting porn. I mean,
right.
Some of the worst shit I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, you saw it?
I saw one.
Well,
Can I tell you? Can I tell you the plot of
I
it?
would love it if you described it in detail. I demand it.
All right, I want to. So they met
You're a sick guy.
they met working. Tom and Zebedee met working on a movie called Unwilling Lovers.
Oh
Okay.
boy, that's not a good start.
And they just like they're kind of the same age, and they're like they hit it off really well, and they have kind of the same sense of humor.
But they're
and
not
they would
willing.
think up crazy ideas for porns.
Oh.
So here's one of Zebedee's.
Oh, you've got it.
I thought he was going to act it out for a second.
Yeah. All parts, like Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's gonna put on a twink suit.
So Colt is his wife run a farm, right? Their daughters, the movie's called Farmer's Daughters. They live on the farm,
Oh yeah.
and there's a farmhand there named Fred, and
Now, is he slow?
he is slow, Aaron. Do you remember me telling you about this?
They
Nope, I
killed
just
a
guessed
rabbit.
it.
Yeah,
No, I just guessed it because it sounds like
yeah.
classic. Sounds classic.
I like your use of the word slow instead of the other word that you love.
Retarded?
Well, it means slow, so that's fine.
That's right. It's not a judgment on the person's worth or character.
So the parents are getting it on, of course, at the outset. The daughters are watching, insane. And then
No, this ain't Roots.
Right, exactly.
Or this can't be Roots.
Can't be Roots.
Sorry.
Can't be. I don't care what Blockbuster says. This
This
can't.
can't be Roots.
Wait a
I
minute.
don't care if you got Alex Haley here himself or LeVar Burton. This can't be Roots.
So Fred is making fun of them, and the father's style. He's like, I watch them all the time. He's terrible at it.
He fucks like a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And so they're all like, not too thrilled with him, and so then they kind of they kind of grab him and take him down to like some weird shed, and
Fucking shit.
the daughters gang rape him, you know.
The slow fella?
Yeah, and they sit on his face and stuff, and then one of the girls spits his own ejaculation on his face.
That's a snowball.
Well,
Or in his case, a slow ball.
yeah. Thank you. Very, very good.
Matt spit up there.
It's so dumb.
You love it. I love it.
And so then, they start hitting him with a fly swatter after they tie him up, and they're telling him not to say anything to their parents.
That's a refractory period for you.
Because nobody will believe you.
And then they all pee on him.
Oh, it's got better. Now, did they hire a real slow person or
No,
who'd they
no.
What is this,
who was
legal
the
porno?
Well, I mean, Zebedee Colt is the dad in it, but nobody else is. Well, actually, no, I'm wrong.
Who's the slow fella?
I don't know who that is. Most of these people are not, world-class actors, Aaron. I don't know if you...
Well, you're right. I'm sorry.
What do you want me to find out if what his IQ is?
I want you to go on his
You want him to
I want
be
you to
slow.
go. I want you to go on his IAFD and see what else he was in. And,
Oh, yeah.
IAFD for the listeners. IAFD is the porn IMDb.
Right.
Find out the 70...
IAFDB.
Yeah, internet. No. It's just Internet Adult Film Database.
That's IAFDB. Yeah.
Database is one word. It's just IAFD. Trust me.
I'm saying that the website is .com. IAFDB.com.
There's no B.
You sure?
There's no. 100% positive.
All right.
This is one thing I'm sure of.
So after they pee on him, they start gang raping him again. And at this point, 3 escaped convicts walk by.
Oh, they just walk by the piss rape happening?
Yeah.
No, they're escaped convicts. Who knows where they'll go?
The escaped convicts are walking.
So
It's been a long day for them.
Just having a stroll.
the leader of that is played by this guy named Spalding Gray.
Spalding, the real Spalding Gray?
Yeah.
Monologist?
Yes.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
What?
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. Spalding Gray. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
This is like some convergence of the dumbest threads
With
possible.
smart.
Full of piss.
Yeah. I mean, like, very famous actors would see some of these porns that Zebedee Colt was in and be like, hey, are you in the story of Joanna? And he's like, they would say to him, are you Zebedee Colt? And he'd be like, yeah. And he's like, in one, I played a bisexual butler. And he goes, and one of my Broadway co-stars said, you can be my butler anytime.
Spalding Gray is in this horrible retard porn.
Yeah. Well, wait till you
probably
find
got
out what they're all up
sandwich.
to.
Oh, boy.
Ugh.
It sounds a lot like Last House on the Left at this point.
It's exactly like that, Aaron. And so they knock out the dad in the house because they go past the girls, and they go to the house and they gang rape the mom.
Oh,
God.
And they see their parents. The girls come by.
shut up, bitch! It's a fucking party.
Yeah, it's just like that story of Prunella level of insanity, and like the dad's like tells the girls to run away, and outside they find the other convict that was going to retrieve them, and so then the three guys, including Spalding Gray, Aaron, rape the three daughters in front of their parents.
No.
In a game of Simon Says.
Simon Says?
Yeah.
Seaman Says.
Right. And then Fred, the slow boy, the farmhand, he returns in the midst of this and grabs the shotgun. And now the retard is running the show.
Okay, now I think I've seen this.
No, you
No, wait. This is the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think
he holds the convicts at gunpoint, but also the family. And
yeah, now they all suck his dick.
Right. And so the convicts are like, get out of here, you dumb slow boy. And then he kills one of them.
Yeah.
Showing means business.
And then he orders the mom to start blowing him. And then he orders one of the daughters to blow her dad. And then he makes the mom and daughters hook up, and then he makes all of the surviving convicts, of course, pee on the girls.
I feel like I've seen this.
And then Fred does the same. The dad gets the shotgun. He kills Fred, and then at the end, the whole thing is like reverse chronology, fast forward, and then it's like a daydream that you see that the retarded guy was having.
Oh, so it's like St.
sake.
Elsewhere?
And
It was all a dream?
But he was having this dream while the girls were pissing on it.
Whoa, that's super meta.
Dude, it's insane.
That's actually pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also retarded.
That's
But, so, while the girls are gang raping him and peeing on him, he's daydreaming
about
that,
all this horrible.
He's daydreaming that, oh, what if I get the gun and then hold everybody hostage to make them rape each other?
Right.
and then,
That is
but in his daydream,
very good stuff.
in his daydream, he gets shot.
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah, well, that's to make it real.
Yeah.
It has to be believable.
A day nightmare as well.
So,
That's right.
Ian Jane of Rock Shop Pop magazine said Farmer's Daughters was a grisly pornographic take on the home invasion Last House on the Left style of horror. And he said it was uncomfortable viewing due to its sleazy and socially irredeemable content and rough...
Socially.
socially
very good
irredeemable.
That's a good phrase.
And its rough, primal, and at times almost amateurish feel. Also, Jason Christopher of Film Dick said Farmer's Daughters is a puke-inducing parade of bad taste that
Nice.
sullies the good name of porn and could only be arousing to the most askew of viewers.
P.S. Spalding Gray was great.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
nailed it. He was, yeah.
R.I.P.
Spalding.
Do you think he won an
Spalding Gray-
AVN for that?
What's that?
Do you think Spalding Gray won an AVN for that?
I don't think the avians were around,
Oh,
but they probably created it because of his performance.
Just for him.
Spalding Gray did that like Holiday in Cambodia thing, or whatever it was called. That it's a documentary that they parodied on Documentary Now
Oh, really?
with Bill Hader. Yeah, and it's
Wow.
I don't want to think it's not called Holiday in Cambodia, but it's something like that. But it's basically him at a desk and doing a monologue. He's just speaking most of the time.
Right.
There's like. And he talks about women in Thailand shooting ping pong balls out of their twats and stuff.
Oh,
but,
God.
yeah, but it's a very famous rant type
Yeah.
of thing.
He really committed suicide later after he got sick.
He committed suicide. I think it was probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It may be less. I remember the death because I remember the movie.
Right.
But he was great, and the fact that he did porn is even greater.
So when Zebedee Colt meets
Swimming to Cambodia is what it's called.
gotcha.
It was the monologue was called "Swimming in Cambodia," which was adapted into a film directed by Jonathan Demme.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Of Stop Making Sense and
Silence of the Lambs?
Silence of the Lambs, and also Manchurian Candidate, and he killed himself by drowning.
Yeah, jumped into the East River.
Yeah.
Shit.
Jonathan Demme. So Jonathan Demme has done 2 of the great documentary films of our day.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
So
Not one porn though. Not
well,
one porn.
that we know of. They use an alias.
Maybe
Yeah.
a few loops, who knows?
Yeah, what's his anagram?
Silence of the Limps.
Yeah, Jonathan Emmead. They start doing these two, Zebedee and Tom, start going for this X-rated version of Bing Crosby and Bob Hope movies, and they want to do it like in they bring in this guy Bill Bukowski to keep it low budget, and
Bill Bukowski?
yeah. What? Do you know who that is too?
No, and Charles Bukowski.
It's just a
but-
great
No. He's just like he's quick learner. He wrote a book on being like I think doing stage design and stuff like that. But he was I think at 16 the youngest member of the film union. It was like really fast,
Shit.
And so yeah, he would be cameraman, editor, whatever, gaffer, and just do stuff.
Best boy?
Yeah, I'm sure.
He was a boy.
And so they make these movies all over Europe, and it's in this kind of, like I said, buddy format, and they're like doing it in Amsterdam and Munich, and then Tom is also leaning into crime stuff there with underworld figures like in Amsterdam and stuff, and apparently like the shooting of these movies is like just crazy. Like these guys were nuts. And so yeah, he was doing stuff for DeMeo with underworld contacts in Europe, and these guys would kind of like set up like the girls and the locations and all that kind of stuff, because of all the red light district sort of contacts they would have, and so there's a movie called Dutch Treat and Playgirls of Munich that were the big ones, and they did really well all over the country because they were kind of cashing in on that. Emmanuel thing of like Europeans are lenient about sex and stuff,
So socially liberal.
right? And so they make it they make a bunch of stuff. There's another one called Hollywood Goes Hard, aka French Kittens, which has Jamie Gillis is seen with a transsexual.
Oh.
What?
Yeah,
Such a trailblazer.
yeah. And so yeah, he's regular Village Voice ad for actors. They talk to Connie, his assistant, again, and he's he gets a beachfront house on the North Shore of Long Island, Shoreham, near where I grew up, and people are pretty impressed, and then he did a movie called Angie Policewomen that has Vanessa Del Rio and Samantha Fox and a bunch
Samantha
of
Fox?
yeah.
Like Touch Me Now, Samantha Fox of Page 3 fame?
I don't know what that is.
I mean, I know that I definitely know which Vanessa Del Rio
She-
you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but Samantha Fox was another person of the same era that was.
Was she big tip British blonde?
Yeah, she became she
No, I
was a
don't think
singer,
she was
right?
British.
Different Samantha Fox.
Okay.
Samantha, there was a Samantha Fox in Britain during the 80s
Oh yeah.
who was a Page 3 girl, and also she released some songs that was like, touch me, I want to feel your body. She was kind of like Robin type of music.
Interesting. I wonder.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I don't think it's the same person.
I don't think so either.
This
but
was like a brunette
also
girl.
pretty nice.
That was. I believe she was American. But so he's got money coming in, but he's still like, I want other income streams, and so. Bill Lux, the guy that was shared the office with the Iceman and was his buddy, he would make he would make the box covers and he would make the posters and all that stuff. And then he sees like as it's getting the late 80s and DeMeo gets Tom into credit card fraud, and so they would do stolen credit card receipts and to claim money back from the underwriting companies. And then they start counterfeiting actual cards, and stolen cards would get passed to Tom, who would iron off the numbers and then put new shit on them. And then Tom, because he was so into, gadgetry and just being kind of like really on the ball with that shit.
Porno MacGyver.
He kind of makes it like just very, very impressive. And so then the new cards with the new numbers would be given back to Roy DeMeo, and he'd have teams of people buy shit that you could resell on the black market.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be doing this. He would get a flat payment just for cards, right? And the risk was really low for this shit back then because cards were new,
Right, and there wasn't like a central magnetic strip database. It was back when they had to like take the carbon paper and run the thing over it to get the print of it. It was a different time.
You would get a list as like a store owner of avoid these cards, but like your employees wouldn't care, and also by the time you got the list, like these cards would be dumped. You know what I mean? So you kind of know that it's not going to last, though, right? Because you can only get away with it for so long. But they would basically run up about $10,000 on one of these cards before ditching it, And you got to figure still you're selling that at whatever a loss on the black market, but it's free money, Mm-hmm. And so Roger Kane, who was the other like buddy guy in the movies, he remembers how good Tom would get at making this shit. And he would even go to like a card manufacturing plant in Canada to just learn about creating credit cards and learn shit. And he would just, lean into, making it extremely accurate. And Bill, was asked for help with like screen printing. And he was like, I don't know, man. I don't think I want to do that. And then Tom has a huge breakthrough and develops a foil transfer for cards. And it was, it would just transport all of the artwork from like an Amex or something over. And when the cops found these cards, they had never seen anything like it. They were staggered, like breathtaking forgery here. They were like, this is absolutely incredible. And so DeMeo introduces him to this guy that's into, the same thing. And this guy, George King, is a Westie, the criminal Irish guys that Phil Prince was involved with.
Oh, okay.
And don't forget, DeMeo was the guy that actually started the alliance with the Westies, right? Because you remember there was that one Irish guy that was like, no Italians on this side of town, and then like his like underboss killed him, and then they had an agreement with, the mafia after that. And so DeMeo knows George King personally, and King is known. He's like almost 50, and he's known as being with his buddy Frank Elsis for being just like extremely dangerous thugs and literally out of mental institutions, both of them. Like they'd literally been locked up in Brentwood, New York, like in a psychiatric hospital. Crazy people. And his wife Nora was like in on like the whole gang and shit like that. And King would talk about killing, people and being a hitman and what kind of guns he would use and stuff like that. And he was like, I want to do a more advanced credit card thing with this guy Tom. And he's like, I want to do it on a big scale, more profitable. And so then he brings in this artist maniac named Donald Sanders. And it was like, King was like, the George King was the big scary brute, right? And then Sanders was like this like skinny and quiet and, fades into the background kind of like hippie looking artist guy. And they also knew he was like, but he was also a sociopath. You know what I mean? He was chill,
of course,
but he was dangerous, And so
I like those guys.
yeah. He was like a little kid, and he started forging $100 bills on the school copying machine in California. And they were good enough to get passed, and then his mom moves them to Illinois, and she involves him in a counterfeit airplane ticket scheme with bullshit cards, and they get arrested, and this local DA just kind of won't let it drop. And the cops who knew him at that time said he was a very interesting sociopath and definitely had absolutely no morality whatsoever.
Fuck a dog.
And he had what they called a cold-blooded violent streak.
Oh my God.
That's never a good sign.
So while he's on bail, his mom hooks him up with George King and sends him to New York. And then he becomes the third member of this crew, making these cards. And they're perfect, Aaron. They are like, they lift the American Express design perfectly.
Because of this foil breakthrough that Tom had.
Yeah, but also like Donald is bringing in a lot of the artistry too, right?
Got it.
So maybe like Tom was more manufacturing and Donald was more artistry.
You need both sides, right? Hey, can we take a quick break so I can get my charger?
Yeah. I'll grab some
Yes,
beers,
we will
too.
return in a moment. And we're back. Also, special shout out to Madeline, who started following us and has that great porn collection.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Crypt of Cum.
Yeah, found us through the El Goldstein episode. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So, these three maniacs, are making these cards, and Sanders is kind of the artist, mimicking it perfectly. Tom is kind of like the equipment guy, and he's transferring the designs, and then George King is just kind of like the big boss bully guy, Also, Tom's studios, they're the hub, right? And he developed computer records of all the cards that came into their possession. And when they ran out of storage space, he took over a warehouse in Brooklyn, and he opened up a P.O. box in the Bronx where, bringing all this equipment to counterfeit stuff would be, kind of, a little bit more anonymous. And so at first it's just a huge fucking success, right? Like, huge.
$10,000 a card.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and so...
Now, wait, are they faking the numbers or are they copying the numbers?
Well, you're getting I think they're just creating them completely now.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And so they're they're not getting TVs or any shit like that. They're going straight to fucking rental companies, and they're getting a fucking car, and they're driving that car straight onto the port and sending it out of the country.
Holy shit.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, because back then they're like we said, they're taking the carbon, the carbon paper off the number of the card.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not, they didn't have like the instant, approved thing. It was just like in 3 days they send that paper into the credit card company, all that.
Yeah.
So they're fucking making $25,000 a clip.
So
Yeah.
they're sending the car over, and as soon as
$15,000, whatever.
as soon as the car leaves,
You're never seeing it again.
yeah, and now that's
Let's
a
see it
whole
in this
thing. that
light.
gets
How about this light? Daylight, motherfucker.
Exactly. So at this time where this is like really going gangbusters, they were saying that the car rental companies were losing 20% of their profit because of credit card
Oh,
fraud.
that's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And so this flood of cash to these guys is like, you kind of want to one and done it because that it'll eventually get figured out, but then you make so much money that you're like, shit, man, and then they had a lot of cards, dude.
You gotta imagine.
Yeah?
They had a lot of cards.
They have a whole deck?
Yeah, they got a couple of decks. So yeah, they would they would start to open businesses and with just running up charges on fake cards and then leaving, and law enforcement is just facing this glut of shit, and they don't even know where to start. They don't know where to begin. But then enter Roy DeMeo. Roy DeMeo's thinking is, you there?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just got quiet for a second. Roy DeMeo's thinking is, why didn't I introduce you to like all of this to begin with?
Oh.
Because like this flood of cash is also like other criminal groups are going to see that, right? And so DeMeo is like, you know, between feeling outwardly like betrayed or at least ignored, right? And so he just demanded a cut. And then Tom was like, I can't, you know, this is kind of George King's thing. And George doesn't want to cut anybody else in.
Right.
And so the cops start a task force then. And when they find the cards again, they're like, they were perfect in design. They were perfect counterfeits. Perfect. And then Tom is arrested in 80 for credit card fraud. And the gang is just like, oh, shit. But then the charges against him are dropped.
Huh.
And people are like, what?
Somebody's greasing the wheels.
Yeah, trading
They basically...
topless pictures.
Detectives, of course, aren't going to say, I don't think, even afterward, what really happened. But they said they deduced that he wasn't really a mastermind, and he was more of a tech guy with good skills. And they considered using him as an informant. And then George King was like, why was the case dropped? Did you turn? And, you know, so DeMeo and the Italians are mad at him. And then, you know, this Westy guy that he's, you know, fucking let into the hen house, he's mad too. And so he's just feeling all this pressure, and he starts kind of like just hiding out, you know? And he's going
He can't run away from this one?
I mean...
He has too much stuff.
You know, he told Bill Lux, he's like, the Italians are coming for me. And then he installs surveillance, like, listening stuff in his office to spy on George. I think to hear, you know, if they're, like, plotting against him or something. You know, he's like the techie guy, right?
Yeah.
And so, out of nowhere, though, don't forget George Sanders and his poor mother in Peoria are being, you know, doggedly pursued by this DA. And out of nowhere, George Sanders decides, I'm going to go kill the DA in Peoria, Illinois. Right?
All the way from Newark.
All the way, yeah, from Manhattan or whatever, you know?
Hey, it's important to have goals, and, you know.
He's so mad about this, and he you know, again, he's a psychopath, and George King is like, absolutely not. You can't do this. Like, there's way too much at stake here. And so Sanders leaves, and he goes September 4th with this other guy named Chris Sample to find the DA, and he buys tickets with a counterfeit credit card.
Of course, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right?
Good start.
And they search his luggage in Chicago, and they find 2 guns.
Huh.
And they find a collection of counterfeit credit cards.
But they search him when he lands, which means that they were tipped off to his arrival.
Or did they search him during the check-in process?
It seems that they went through the bags.
Before.
So, yeah, they went through the bags, and they waited to see
Tip off the local...
I don't know.
Or who picked him up.
Or is that an X-ray thing? I have no idea, you know?
I don't know either. This is
It doesn't-
pre-9/11
But they
world.
searched him when he landed, right? Not when he left.
Well, when he picked up the bags, then they
I see.
Yeah, it seems like
I
they
see.
you know, they went through the bags at check-in, which they did at some point back then.
Right.
And then they wait to see who picks it up
Yeah.
at the plane.
Yeah. So he's they find the counterfeit credit cards, you know, in the rest of the search, and then that is that they find also contact information for George and Tom. And
It's his whole fucking contact
yeah,
book.
it's just the worst thing in the world. And so they the cops are like, yo, we found these cards, you know, to the New York cops, and they're like, okay, don't let him out of jail, right? And we got to catch this guy. And they're also like, if he gets out, George King will just kill him, right?
Sure.
So then Sanders confesses, and he identifies the other people, Tom and George, and he gives up all the locations, and they pretty much find most of the stuff, especially the creating the counterfeit cards equipment, gone, but they do find 160,000 counterfeit credit cards.
I thought you were going to say
Which
dollars.
they say could have bought-
Cards.
They said that could have bought $1.6 billion worth
Yeah.
of merchandise.
Yeah.
106,000 fake credit cards.
160,000.
There weren't that many credit cards in the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you one at a time, one at a time.
Incredible.
So
That's
Frank,
amazing.
his buddy Frank Elsis and George, they get all this stuff in a little storage unit, and he's so mad, right? And he doesn't know, how did they know how to get Sanders? Did Tom tip them off? And so he's talking to Roger Kane, the porn actor, and he's like, I've listened to my listening devices, you can call them hearing devices.
hearing devices and wigs.
And he goes, they've talked about killing me, and he's hiding from Roy DeMeo. He's hiding from the cops. He won't go through the studios, and he's got to keep moving. But friends are like, dude, we just don't want to get involved. Like Zebedee Colt is like, I don't want to get involved.
If Spalding Gray's like, get me the fuck out of here.
Right. And so
Piss on somebody.
the cops are trying to get a hold of him to get information about the gang, and on Wall Street on September 30th they find Tom's body in a car. He was shot 11 times, and they don't know really who killed him. Nobody was ever charged with his murder. It was viewed as a gang thing, but they were just.
It was Chinese Town.
Right, forget about it. And they were just like, we're way more interested in stopping this credit card thing. Honestly, we don't care.
Yeah.
Bill Lux said he thought it was DeMeo's gang, and he thought, just with, the Gemini method and stuff like that, they were like, it's probably them. Detectives and the people working the credit card case thought it was George King, and King was, he was. They still arrested King at his new storage facility, and they all showed up at the storage facility one day, and they all got charged with the thing, and he was a suspect in the murder. His bail was set at $500,000, which was massive at the time.
Shit.
So yeah, that was kind of how it all shook out.
Meanwhile, the Iceman is just fucking.
He's chill.
Cashing checks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So George King was still around, but everybody that talked to the reporter was like, do not talk to him. He's very dangerous. Turns out he died in 2007 anyway.
So everybody told the reporter, hey, don't talk to George King because he's crazy.
Because he's really dangerous, even if he's super old. Roy DeMeo was killed in 1983, a few days after John Boy here was born.
Hey,
Coincidence?
Yeah.
Nice.
Tom's former wives were really apparently forthcoming about it, and said one of them said, you reap what you sow about his murder.
Wow. He did leave them both.
Roger Kane, the actor, said he misses Tom, and if he'd gone in other directions, he could have had huge success.
Sure.
Yeah.
Zebedee Colt left because of Tom's murder. He got out of porn because of that. Wow. And Bill Bukowski, he ended up in North Hollywood.
Oh God.
Donald Sanders, the guy who was going to kill the DA, he was he got a 7-year sentence, and there was rumors that rather than serve time, he got into the witness protection program. And the last time one of the detectives on the case saw him was when the police had a party to celebrate convicting George King.
And he was at
Sanders,
the party.
his friend, was at the party.
In witness protection.
Yeah.
Hey, who's this new
I
bartender?
met you guys tonight, right?
I mean, that to me is, total evidence that he flipped, and
Yeah, state's evidence, man.
nobody knows his whereabouts or if he's alive or anything like that.
Yeah, so yeah,
That's that whole
He flipped.
crazy web of just. It's crazy how it takes in this huge swath of.
A real cross section of society.
Yeah,
absolutely.
just like only in New
Great.
York, there's like 1 degree of separation between the Iceman
Everybody,
and Spalding
between
Gray.
everybody.
Yeah. They all live around the corner from each other.
Yeah, and this is why the fucking coronavirus is spreading everywhere.
just-
Everybody knows everybody.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. When you said Spalding Gray, and the ice, God,
I was very happy you
what
knew
a-
who Spalding Gray was. That was very good.
I am
Rather
Fake smart.
cultured.
I'm fake smart. I
Yeah.
knew kind of what he did.
You don't forget a name like that.
No,
it is a great
Yeah,
name.
you don't forget a name like that. That's pretty great stuff, John Boy.
It makes
Pretty great stuff.
makes me think of like two things. One is when porn is illegal, then
It breeds
all
this
sorts of
mob
connection.
nastiness.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. You're right.
Yeah.
Same thing with pornography and drug dealing. And,
yeah.
And I mean, even though porn is legal, there is kind of an unsavory element.
Well, there's a part
Attached
of
to
that
it
stigma
now?
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it, like you said, because there's a stigma to it, it still attracts.
But very much less so.
Certainly less so, but it is
Become more
still,
mainstream, and it's also become more corporate investment for sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
absolutely. Sure.
and thank God to a degree, or at least, I don't think there are a lot of cam girls that are involved with the mafia.
Yeah. Odds are.
You know,
a lot
right?
of OnlyFans accounts.
Right. So, but there is still, John, you and I both know that there is still kind of there's a
Yes. Yeah.
there is a
still
connection between the unsavory element and that industry because it's a high risk industry.
Yeah.
But and you need a certain amount of money.
You need money to get in, and you need people who have
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like
Wavering.
It's crazy how much overlap there is with like these things, like just.
drugs and porn. And
Well, I mean, but even like
And-
at that time, like I mean,
at that time, without a doubt, and it makes total sense.
and the small amount of people doing it, and then
Right.
like when I read about these two Greek guys that are buying the movies or bankrolling the movies, I'm like, is that one of the guys that fucking chased fucking
Yes.
what's his name down? Remember, he gives him your fuck you and fuck your doorknob. Remember that?
Yes.
Bryant
Yeah.
from the Prince of Porn episode.
That's right.
If you guys want to listen to similarly themed things, episode 3 and episode 53
That episode
are in the same world.
Honestly, episode 3 is so fucking good.
Yeah, so one of our best for sure.
I can't. You can't find that documentary anywhere because
Which one?
Nicholas Winding Refn bought it.
No, yeah,
Oh,
but
no,
he,
it's on the website.
It was on buynwr.com for what? But as of like 2 days ago or a week ago, because of the coronavirus, he opened up his whole archive.
Oh,
yeah.
that
So
is-
all of the by
okay.
Nicholas Winding Refn archive is free to peruse.
Okay, great. Now I can actually watch it.
Yes. So
It's
those of you who
fucking
don't
awesome.
know, the director of Drive and Valhalla Rising and only there's a few other ones. He purchased the rights to our friend Brian's documentary, The Prince of Porn, as a part of this kind of cultural ephemera project that he's putting together. So it was for pay only as of about a year ago, and as of about a week ago, he made it free for everybody to
Fuck
watch.
yeah.
It's really sweet.
That's great.
It's very, very nice, and he remastered it. It's in full HD, and
That's crazy.
yeah, it's as HD as you can get. With
Of course, yeah.
considering the source
Quality of the
material.
film, it's already
Yeah, but it
it's
is.
an
It's
18-minute watch, one of the best things I've ever seen in my life.
It's amazing.
John showed
Just
it to
hear you
me
guys
like
talk about
after episode 1 of the podcast. He was like, "You got to see this," and we sat down. We got high at my house.
I remember being so happy to show you. I was so
dude,
excited.
you were giddy. You were giddy like a little girl, and then you showed it to me, and I too was girl-like.
Yeah.
And giddy, and I almost peed my pants, and I paused it right in the middle of it, and I said, "This is the best thing I've ever watched in my life."
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good, and,
Yeah.
and we were so fortunate to get Brian to come in, and we became friends with Brian.
Yeah.
Brian helped us with some other stuff, so
Yeah.
it's really, really great.
Yeah, I think with the story, I just kind of got like this takeaway of like what was the thing. Like, it seems like all of this stuff stems from this whole like Rotterdam, like Nazi invasion.
In terms
trauma.
of Tom's issues,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
that's why you're shifty
definitely
and not.
a disturbed person.
Yeah, and you can make the argument that there were hundreds of thousands of people who had the potential to be disturbed, but why Tom? Why
Sure.
Tom did X,
Sure,
Y, and
yeah.
Z? Not everybody went out and started shooting snuff movies or porn movies, but
Yeah. I
certainly
think it's also the trauma.
that
of-
informed his.
Yeah.
life.
But like, I think even like the greed and the money making stuff was even like, how are we going to get through? Like, how are we going to survive?
You never know what might happen tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
Totally get it. But he was also from Rotterdam, which they've got lax sexual.
Yeah, but he
rules.
definitely had, a specific interest in not being a good person too. I think we can.
Yeah, he might have been a piece of shit any other way.
Yeah. Well, you have to imagine he could have been, but also you being bombed to that extent, to the point where it affects his life. Not even mentally, physically for the rest of his life. Maybe there's some motivation in there where nihilism creeps in, sociopathy creeps in, where it's like fuck other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody, I think there's a nice mix of nature and nurture with everybody, right? Because not everybody in his town went on to go make porn movies and get murdered in Manhattan, right?
So run away from the
but certainly the situation we're all in now with the whole world being in this kind of quarantine thing is going to inform everything that we do for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
And all things considered, it's not that bad.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now imagine being in a pre-internet, pre-phone system country, and the Nazis are dropping bombs on your buildings.
Well, it also sounds like even being in New York at that time was a traumatic experience with all.
It was certainly
Easy mob
not as bad as Western Europe and England,
but like really like that. Some of the takeaways. There's so many takeaways from that thing. One of the things was I got to see that puppet movie, but also
you know how to pick them.
But another one was just like the idea of all of these cops having this shared horror over talking about the level of murder from the DeMeo crew.
Yeah, the Gemini method.
Yeah, and just like they said if the crew didn't murder somebody for over a week, they'd be depressed.
Because now I'm a bit confused.
They did not.
If the crew didn't murder somebody for over a week, they got depressed because
they wanted to murder somebody.
Oh, the crew got
the crew, yeah,
not the cops.
Yeah. No, the cops were talking about how they shuddered, like they still shuddered to this day
to think about those murders.
Thinking about the
right. Well, the thing about organized crime is that it's organized, and
that's the trick.
What you have now is you've got the closest analog that you have now is probably the cartels in Mexico, in the way that these guys are good, and they will they'll do the Colombian necktie on you, or they'll fucking put a bunch of schoolboys kids in their mouths.
I think it also it takes away a lot of the guilt or trauma from it, because if you're like
for who.
For the perpetrator, if it's organized, if it's organized,
it's just following orders.
Well,
it's top down. Yeah,
I'm just following orders, but they do get very creative with it, and because they are so organized and it is such a structure, they do really. It's not a crime of passion. It's all right. Well, why are we committing this crime? How do we do it to inflict the most fear? And what are the logistics of doing it? I mean, doing a Colombian necktie or putting somebody's genitals in their mouth and then pushing their body on a donkey into the town square really takes logistics.
Well, yeah, where are you going to get a donkey?
At this hour?
Or town square, yeah.
Probably a donkey show.
This kid's his balls haven't even dropped. How do you expect me to shove them in his mouth?
Good God.
This is some... I'll get you a toe.
But also that kind of in order to do B, I need the motivation is A, is also kind of why it seemed like he would do all of these tricks where he would learn all of this technology because the ends justify the means almost, or this is my only chance to get out, or here I'm making money. So it seems like he was really good.
At whatever he did, whatever it was that he did.
But it was always for some scummy end, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even engineers can be pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Well, if it's like, what if the patent had taken off or something?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe his whole. Maybe. Yeah.
Well, he
Maybe
probably
Jeff
would have been
Bezos.
the head of a yeah, exactly. Who also might be a piece of shit. Like,
Yeah,
you can be a CEO. You know, there was some movie that John Leguizamo did where he basically played the head of some crime family.
Yeah.
This was back in the late '90s, early 2000s, and I just remember from the trailer they were like, "Man, he should be running a Fortune 500 company," and that's the type of skill level that's involved in now, I'm not saying Tom's this level, but also maybe he was.
Well, I think I mean,
But
definitely some people.
There are
thought
smart
so.
people on both sides of the law, right?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, just some of those friends that were not really legally dubious as much were just like, yeah, he was brilliant, and some people just talked about really liking him. As many people as talk about, oh, he was a creep and weird.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people that are like, oh no, I found him intelligent and
Let me ask you, do you
shared
think
a great sense of humor and stuff like that.
I was paying attention to most of your speech, but what I'm getting at is
Speech.
yeah, your
story.
Yeah, I know I'm being a piece of shit, but what I'm saying is, do you think that the people on the right side of the law saw him? Wow, he was actually a pretty smart guy, compared to people who were versed in the language of criminality, saw him for what he really was, a shifty, schizo, paranoid guy, also talented. But do you get the question that I'm asking? Is that the people that were...
I think the people not on that side of the law saw him more as his true self.
Yes, because they knew the tells.
Yeah, but even some of those people that had the more favorable viewpoints of him, like, it was like...
Were some of them, were they on the other side of the law as well?
Well, they were in porn. I mean, that's kind of like a gray area.
Right, for sure.
But yeah, back then it was like illegal to make that shit, right?
Right.
So it's
But that'd be interesting. That'd be interesting to suss out. Is like, all right, the people that saw him on that day to day at the post office thought he was fine, but the people who are really in the shit.
Well, don't forget, even the guy that fucking shares the office with the Iceman is like, oh yeah, he was schizo. And it's like, you're fucking sharing a fucking office with the Iceman.
And well, the Iceman was really good.
Yeah, he was very chill in comparison. Everybody's schizo.
He was super chill. Oh my god.
It's actually the chillest dude I've ever met.
Well,
I
I got chills every time I walked by his office.
John, do you think he was ever uncomfortable with his line of work? Do you think that's where the schizo came from, or?
No, it seems like he sought it out in multiple continents.
Yeah,
It seems
yeah.
like he was,
Yeah.
But it also, I mean,
even when he gets into a corporate contract, he still doesn't abandon that. He still
sure.
Can't help himself but dabble.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was something that was interesting when you're talking about all of these guys who could kind of almost go legally, and yet they still fall back into the obviously illegal stuff. And what is that? Is it just easy money?
I think it's probably a bit of a buzz, but it's also
Right.
the ease with which you don't have to.
Right.
Sure,
I think I think you and I, John, both know that the ease is it's a different kind of ease.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing easy about it, other than
Well, like not paying taxes, just for
right.
Right.
That, I
Less
think that's
hoops.
a big part of it is that there are less regulatory hoops, but there is an inherent risk involved, and that's the tax you pay.
Sure.
The tax you pay is the inherent risk.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of a, you do get a little bit of a rush.
Sure. Yeah.
And
when it's successful, you just kind of go, and it's simple as that.
And that's that, right? But when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
Yeah.
I think for some people the temptation is too great. Some people are risk averse, and some people are not. And this guy had clearly been through the worst of what humanity had to offer at the time for him.
Yeah, it also kind of sounded like he was willing to go deeper and deeper into it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think things like that are drug-like in that aspect.
Yeah, you get
Sometimes you're like-
used to.
But I mean,
if I go a little bit deeper?
Yeah.
If you're just some fucking Dutch guy that's good with gadgets, you shouldn't be stuck between the Westies and the mafia.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing?
How did you get yourself into this mess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just greed, and it's like,
Well, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, leaving
Yeah, this guy
his
was a piece of
family.
shit. He left his lady with the two kids.
Yeah.
and don't
He
forget
didn't have to.
by the time the credit card thing starts, we already have the house in Long Island.
Right.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
He doesn't need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like
It
a lot
was-
of things that he did, he didn't need to.
Yeah. This is the same kind of like gambling addict mentality.
Right.
It's just one of those guys.
Yeah.
And sometimes those guys are good at stuff.
Yeah. He was skilled.
He was very skilled.
It's tricky for me to think about when I think about who killed him, because
He had so many enemies.
well, yeah, and he was found in a stolen car, and so that's like a little bit
Oh,
of
how
a,
poetic.
it's a little bit of a
On a credit card he owned.
that to me skews towards DeMeo.
Because he knew the grift of stealing cars
Well, their main thing was loan sharking and
stealing
car
rental
theft.
cars. Yes.
Well, no, George King and that was under the credit card thing before
Okay.
before anything.
Before all that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like,
Huh.
I mean, I think King had more at stake, and probably is responsible.
But we can never talk.
But you never know, Well, he's dead. They found out he's dead.
Well, before that, they said don't ever talk to him.
Yeah, all of the detectives were just like telling this girl, like, please don't.
Please don't talk to him. Yeah.
He was so good. He was so good at his job that if they eliminated him, they eliminated a really big connection to them of the guy who could make the cards, the guy who could allow them to do their thing.
Yeah. I mean, like, also the cops were apparently trying to flip him.
And also the cops back then were mad corrupt. And not that they aren't now, but back then, with the 70s, mid 70s,
Right, like Serpico
late
wasn't
70s,
some-
Thing, like when you're talking about the case being dropped, like was that a DeMeo
Yeah.
payoff or like
or just or how many thousand? They probably had 1,000 beat guys in Lower Manhattan at the time. So, and like.
It also
how many
shows
of them,
you though, like how motivated these guys were just by money, like just like
Exactly.
companies being like,
hey,
forget
just
this
forget
murder.
about it. Forget about it.
Yeah.
You find out what's going on with these cards,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, the guy that did it's dead. Cool."
Great, good. No, yeah, exactly. So there are it's like the Kennedy assassination. There were just so many angles. Like you're never gonna fucking figure it out.
Yeah, and then the guy himself is so secretive. You know what I mean? Nobody who knows him really knows him.
Right.
He's just a many-faced person. So like you're not.
In that Dutch
Pretty wild
accent.
stuff, John. Pretty wild.
Yeah,
stuff.
I read that one a long time ago, and I think just because you did your episode yesterday, I was like,
With the Rialto report.
yeah, it made me.
And I
wanna
was
just
so
kind of-
impressed with. I had never done a deep dive into the Rialto report, and I was so impressed with the quality of the writing and the investigative
Yeah,
journalism.
and one article will lead you to another, and you can go down some really deep
So many.
holes.
They do a really good job of hot linking
Yeah.
to all their other articles. It's really, really good shit.
Yeah,
can't believe it took me so
I
long.
remember seeing in this article the Kuklinski thing, and I was like, "That's really familiar. Is that the fucking Iceman?" And it was like, there's a fucking link on his name, and then I was like, "Oh shit, it is."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a fascinating web.
Like that a lot. I like it a lot, John.
Yeah, I am. I'm really glad I got to share it with you. Good.
Yeah,
boy.
thank you, John.
Anyway, sleep tight.
Yeah, I know it's pretty dark. Even like the
No, I
farmer's
love it.
daughter stuff in the beginning.
No, that's the best part.
No, but hey, there's a lot of fucking. I mean, anybody
A
in
lot of
that
these
in
people
that
have no
shit.
morality. They don't have any
Well,
morality.
that's the thing too, is that it being so taboo, I feel like it was like guys like Philip Prince and Zebedee Colt. Zebedee Colt is also like a gay guy. You know what I mean?
Ew,
and,
ew.
and he's just kind of like, but he's still just like, I just
don't know
wanna make a
gender.
big fuck you movie.
Yeah, it's
You know
a
what I
very big
mean?
fuck you movie.
Yeah, that movie's
fuck
insane.
me.
That Jesus Christ, the piss and the dream and the.
That's the normal part.
It's
It's really great stuff.
yeah. There's only
love it.
there's only one consensual sex act in the entire movie.
And Spalding Gray's in it.
And it's one too many, if you ask me.
Should we call it there?
I think we should.
Sure,
This is. I hope everybody listening is having a good quarantine.
Yeah. Be safe.
thank
Wash
you-
your hands.
thank
Don't
you.
touch your face.
That's right. Well, touch your face after you wash your hands, I suppose, but don't minimize it. Don't touch my face. You're sick.
Touch mine. touch mine.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with our video conference format.
Yeah. It's getting better.
And
it's getting better.
it's getting better. our internet is not cutting out as bad.
Figuring it out.
No, this time that's all
And we're
good.
trying it out. We're figuring it out. And I love you, boys.
Yeah,
me
I'm
too.
gonna say goodnight. My name is John Fahey.
My name is Aaron Peepee.
Matt Brousseau.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Good night.
Starburns Audio.